Boom, boom, boom. So as far as I know, we are streaming.
Very cool.
Thanks, Kanye. Yeah, so welcome everybody to episode check 11 of Kyle and Friends. This is a Kyle and Friends episode 11. And man, there's a red dot on my OBS, like as if there's a notification.
Mm. Mm.
Can you check if this is working with sound?
Got it. 1 sec.
I think it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, do you want to update? But I have pretty bad OCD with notifications. Like, I don't like to look at them and not address them. I have OCD with OBS.
Damn.
OBS with constipation. Do you remember those commercials? IBS. It's like a irritable bowel syndrome drugs, and it's like, if you're suffering from IBS or IBS with constipation, and the person that read it had to read that whole thing every time they talked about the condition. So it was like 20 times during this 30-second commercial. It's like, for sufferers of IBS or IBS with constipation.
It's like trying to hit like a word limit on an essay.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you're saying it's working. Is that cool?
Yep.
Cool? Okay. All right. Welcome everybody. As I said, episode 11. And this is John the Savage, who has been vociferously moderating this channel here. He's the mod. So if you wanted to post to all of my many viewers, if you wanted to post spam or like comments that go against community guidelines or TOS or like Russian propaganda, you better not.
You know, Kyle, I'm so dedicated to that position. I think I'm going to have that open in another window just so I can fulfill my duty even in the middle of this.
Yeah, we may get a comment, and you might have to look at it to make sure that it's all good. You know what I've gotten a lot of? When you have a YouTube channel and you get a comment, you get an email. I guess unless you turn that setting off, and also when you just have the website open, it'll have it under the notifications. And so I'll open it up, and very often people delete their comments.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
And it's very annoying.
Even like when you answer someone, like after answering it, then they'll go ahead and delete it.
Yeah. And a lot of times people, and like it doesn't go away, or it'll stay in your notifications. So if you just scroll down, like all the notifications you ever got from people subscribing or leaving comments, it's still there. So like if they're embarrassed they said something stupid, you could still like post it. I should save all of them so that I can like just
blackmail people.
Yeah. My latest comment, somebody said that influencers, they were like, apologize in the whole about the influencers being sociopaths or whatever. It's like people should take responsibility for their own health, you know? Which is kind of like, oh, okay. Alyssa said my volume's low.
It's just because my voice is just significantly more,
I can fix
there's more presence to it. Also, hi, Alyssa.
How's this?
Oh, baby.
I had the gain turned down a little bit from when I was recording that last, actually the Guru's audio essay, because I felt like I was getting an electric buzz. Alyssa says hi. So anyway, I felt that was a weird novelty take, because it's like, yeah, man, like people should just be responsible for themselves. Like, yeah, somebody's putting out advice and, you know, saying that you're going to get diabetes if you eat carbohydrate, and that if you don't follow the, like, you know, all this stuff, and and one of them's a medical doctor. And, but like, I don't know. It's like, at what point do people have a responsibility for what they say, or, for example, if they monetize it, and then also not necessarily a legal responsibility, but like, okay, so you're making content, you're making money from it, and then you completely change your message, and you don't really address that. Shouldn't a video such as mine be the response? Like, that's that's like people are people should take responsibility for themselves, whatever. But people making content should also perhaps be responsible for the content. I don't know, tactical. I think he's engaged in a little bit of tactical laissez-faire, tactical nihilism, maybe tactical libertarianism.
Yeah, it's funny just because like, you have people that like others turn to as being like more or less like a source of information, and you just kind of they're there for people to get information from, and then you're going to blame it on the people for turning to like individuals that like their whole shtick is like, yeah, I'm like a beacon of knowledge,
Right.
like it really isn't so much on like the individual. It really should be on like those people that are like, peddling whatever goods they are.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things. Like, there's a nuance to it. Like, if some person is just on a forum and they're like, "Hey, I'm trying this diet. This is my journey, guys. I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to do this or that," and people follow what they're saying, and whatever happens, happens. That's a lot different than somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in like the context of a forum where like, it's supposed to be like a place to discuss and talk with other people in like more or less a similar boat. But like, again, when it's somebody that has like that quote unquote position of authority, like it's a completely different relationship in that case.
Yeah. So, not that, and it's funny too, because I guess I use the word apologize, but I don't really want anybody to apologize. What I really want is for them to go away, to like commit No Longer Alive in Roblox.
Oh my God.
Because I've started to feel that way about a lot of people on the internet, where, I used to argue with people a lot, and now sometimes you get into a point where an argument where somebody's like, okay, fine. All right, fine. I'm so bad. You're so great. What do you want me to do? It's like, go away. Just not be here anymore. Like, go get a normal job and stop doing what you're doing, because everybody would be better off if you just didn't exist. And that's not really something you can tell somebody that has any kind of an effect. So, but that's essentially my position. Okay, so let's get into the it's just the introductory information. Hey, is it raining where you are?
No.
It was raining quite a bit here, but I think it's done now. I guess you couldn't hear it. So you have some pictures eating some things, some extreme
Correct.
foods. So anyway, and I actually don't know the answer to this question, but where did you start being interested about diet and or exercise and or health or whatever?
So I think like the first seeds that grew into this love of nutrition were planted back in high school, back when I was like fat. And for the most part, like nutrition was just the means to the end of being not fat. Little did I know that, almost like 8 years later now, that it would kind of be more or less what my life is kind of revolving around. But it really was just like, trying to find foods and like an eating plan and just like scheduled eating that let me progressively lose weight. Because I think at my highest, I was like 280. And, slowly through high school, mainly focusing on just like diet and biking, because, I was just a big cardio bunny back then. But, I was just trying to like lose weight for my freshman year of college, just because I finally had like access to like an actual like decent gym. I started training just to swap out the cardio, honestly, because that was just starting to get really tedious. And I think I like more or less ran out of like albums to listen to while biking. And then, it just slowly grew on me, and the gym just became like that second home. And I liked how in the zone it just like forced me to be. And, it helped in a lot of different aspects of life, but slowly but surely, like, It's funny because I got this from like a Sam Hyde bit actually, but he's talking about how like learning how to work out is like one of the most important things you can know because it teaches you how to learn something. And I think that's like so true in my case because like it really gave me such a good like foundation in regards to like how to research something and then like apply it to my life. And more or less just like, going to like all the different like websites and YouTube channels and just like trying to aggregate as much information on the topic as I could. I just like really found myself almost surrounded by it before I even realized what was happening. And I just like really kind of loved it. So I just kept going with it. So, that transition from like cardio to the gym was around like 18, 19, and then still focusing on like weight loss. And then my first year was in Penn State for college, and I went to Rutgers. And at Rutgers, I was just biking to like every fucking class. And
Hey,
yeah,
what year
I
was that?
got
What year were you in Rutgers?
2015 was my first.
Oh, I was there.
That's fucking hysterical. Wow, we could have passed each other and not even known it. That's great. But yeah, it basically, I went from just like, your whole grain bread and your peanut butter and your fucking like egg whites and shit to just
Egg
having like,
whites.
yeah, I was big on the egg whites, dude. I would literally just take like an entire like carton, like mix in some like sugar-free chocolate syrup, mix it up and just chug it down. Yeah. But yeah, I started like fasting without even really like, or excuse me, intermittent fasting without even really, being brought into that whole sphere yet. Because I would more or less like wake up, I would have like a more proteiny, carby breakfast, and then I would work out in my attic because I had gymnastic rings up there and like some weights and shit like that. And I'd come back down and just have like a straight protein meal, and then I would just bike to class, and then I would literally just have black coffee for the rest of the day. And I think I was like 180, and I dropped down to probably, I think, 143. And for reference, I was probably around like 6'3" at the time, so I was literally like a twig. And after that, like I was very happy with how I looked. Like I looked like a model. It was great. My ego was like 3 times bigger than my body at that point. But eventually, I craved more just because, like past the point, especially in a state like that, your performance is going to tank. So, I did my first bulk where more or less I was trying to convince myself that I could like eat like a frozen Walmart pizza a day and not gain any weight just because I was training so hard. Wasn't the case, but put on a decent amount of size and then got up to like 180. And then, ever since then, it's just been like kind of back and forth with just like more or less normie bro food and then just like different styles of training. And eventually got into like all the Aajonus stuff, and that really was kind of like a turning point for me in regards to like how much I valued nutrition, just because like that really let me understand the whole like health equals wealth thing. And it came at it's funny because I just had a friend over here and we were talking, and like it came at such a good time because I just finished my degree in psychology and I wanted to start kinesiology. So I would have to get like, I had my bachelor's and I was about to have to get another fucking bachelor's because I'm retarded and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went into college. But, I just I just finished like calc for the first time, and I tried to take like a condensed version of calc 1 and 2, and I just failed the fuck out of it. And I was like, shit, this is not for me. This school stuff is getting hella boring, and like what could I see myself doing for my life? And I thought about like training and exercise and all that shit, but that market is incredibly saturated. Not to say that nutrition isn't, but I definitely, in the year where I was failing calc but also starting the primal diet and everything, I just saw the importance of diet like grow every day in my life, and the changes in my like my mental state and my overall health. Like it really proved its importance to me. And I just kind of went with it. So again, I was in college for like an extra year and I was just like, fuck it. So I stopped college. I did the uh, NTA training, so I'm an NTP, and I don't know, I'm just kind of vibing, trying to be big, trying to be healthy, and trying to get more people on the path.
So you never did any kind of vegetarian diet, is that right?
I was briefly for my freshman year of college because I just wanted to try it. I wanted to
Mm.
see what all the hubbub was about. I think I lasted maybe like 4 months. I was still having like eggs and yogurt and stuff like that, but I was doing a fuck ton of tofu. And honestly, by the end of it, I just felt like such like a sobbing estrogenic mess that I could not keep going. But it was great because literally when I stopped, I th- I stopped by having like some shitty fucking like pizza with like chicken and bacon and pepperoni and just like every fucking meat I could get. And
Mm.
then I just was in like a food coma for like 2 days after that. And I just like emailed all of my professors like, hey, I've been vegetarian for like 2 years and I just had meat for the first time in a while. And like my stomach is just going through like hell. Like I don't think I can make it to class. And everybody was okay with it, which is great. But yeah, that's the extent of like any sort of like really extreme plant-based dieting that I ever did.
uh, okay, okay. Um, yeah, I never thought of that one of like not going to class because like my
My tummy hut.
yeah, I changed my diet and yeah. So when you were at Rutgers, that was actually one of that was I guess smack in the middle of graduate school for me.
Oh, cool.
So I was there from actually it was towards well I was there from 2000 the fall of 2011
Mhm.
through 2016 and basically the first semester the winter semester of 2017 I was still enrolled but I was already like in Florida just writing my dissertation and stuff.
Uh,
Yeah, I was around. Were you on Cook Douglas campus?
I had a few classes there, but I lived off of College Ave.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't go there very much. I did proctor exams there. That's
Mm.
basically all I did. But man, that's crazy.
Yeah, small
Hey,
world.
hey, what's your favorite place there? Because it's an ugly
Um,
campus.
it's awful. Um, that's that's
Do you know the
kind
Kissing
of
Bridge in Cook Douglas
the one that goes over like the.
ravine? There's like a
Yes,
woods. It's like
yes,
there's a music
exactly.
building. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's called the Kissing Bridge. It was built in like 1940 when that was scandalous. Like, oh, let me go here and kiss. I'm like,
In the same theme of a kissing bridge, I honestly think it's the Passion Puddle on Cook Douglas, just because that's just like, it is what it is, but like it is nice, and it was a nice place to like, chain smoke in between classes as you do. So,
oh
eh.
yeah, I hung out there a lot. I would sit on the
Mhm.
bench and just look at whatever frisbee golf. Okay.
So much frisbee golf. So many people passionate about frisbee golf.
Yeah. Well, um, it's good to get out there and really love something that's important. Uh, so you're on forums and stuff. How about like bodybuilding.com? I found that's like the best um, data set. It's like the longest running experiment.
It's so like intense. I didn't really partake the forums as much as I did the articles, and I'm like the most dedicated lurker ever. Like I rarely fucking post, but I remember one part of the bodybuilding.com website, it just had like every like different fucking kind of exercises and like people would comment like what they like about it or like how they react to them and like that was one of my favorite things and I just thought that was like so fucking cool and I would just spend like honestly hours like trawling through that and just like picking out exercises like oh I gotta try this and like all that.
So did you have any influencers that you were into before Aajonus?
Honestly, funny enough, right before Aajonus, I was super big into like fasting and everything. Like when I actually like super got into fasting because this would have been I think I was like 24, so maybe like 2016, 2017. And funny enough, I literally just came off of a cycle. And I was like, okay, like I still got a bit of fluff, so let me try this fasting stuff out. And then, I just fasted all my gains away, which was pretty lit. But, you just keep telling yourself that, I'm fixing stuff. I'm not eating, my body's repairing itself. So, obviously I'm doing something good.
Hmm.
But, yeah, so,
Autophagy.
hmm But yeah, the fucking Cole Robinson snake diet, dude, like just yelling at people and shit. And like, I don't know, like, I didn't even like, I didn't even enjoy picking up what he was putting down, but there was just something about it that like, clicked in my head, I guess, just because I guess that's such like a contrarian like belief that like, oh, like yeah, you can eat every day, but do you really need all those calories every day? Couldn't you like still subsist and like couldn't you like support yourself by eating like 1 day's worth of calories once every 2 days and stuff like that? But yeah, that kind of just like got me into like a really slippery slope where I was doing like alternate day fasts for like months at a time. And then I was doing like fucking like alternating week-long fasts. And like my record was like 11 days of just not eating and just like drinking water. And like, it really does something for you mentally, apart from like obviously like the hormonal cascade that it costs. But like it just, it, it puts you in a very interesting state. And I think that was like my first real touch with like esoteric healthism, you know, just because like, I'm doing this thing that's making me feel in a certain way. And like, yes, it's related to food, but the way it's related to food is by not having food, you
Hmm.
know? But after that, I started to get into like the whole like Sean Bakery carnivore stuff, and that was for like maybe a month tops. And then I found Aajonus, and then it was just gung ho into that. Like I still have like the original video on my phone where I had these steaks that were like marinating in a bag, and I just like literally like reach in and pull one out and just take a bite out of it. And I was like, yo, raw meat is brolic as fuck. And then yeah, that was basically me for close to like 2.5 years. And like, I loved it. But like, honestly, when it comes to like Aajonus and all that stuff, like, it really is the pinnacle of like esoteric healthism, which I'm going to be credited as creating that term. I don't care what anyone says. But yeah, it's just when you have beliefs and like an entire system that you're trying to like get out to people that goes so far against like the established baseline of what we've been told, like there's such an appeal to it. And I think I just got like sucked into that, and I was sucked into it so heavy for like a really long time, honestly. But yeah, I kind of just eventually broke free of that.
Right. The I used to try. I think I used to try to do one meal a day,
Mm,
but I was usually on some type of raw diet uh, while that was happening, and I was always running up against this problem. So I don't have that problem now because people that have never tried to be a raw foodist,
mm,
especially raw vegan, but also, you know, just raw anything, they don't understand because like you could eat a sandwich and get, you know, 600 calories or even 800 calories and like 30 grams of protein, and your stomach not even feel that stuffed with matter, because it's
uh,
like the bread and cheese and meat and stuff. But if you're eating that many calories of raw foods, it's like if you were like, all right, I'm going to eat 3,000 calories of raw stuff, like whether it's plant or animal matter,
mm.
um, it's just like, unless, I mean, you could just like eat butter, but if you're eating meat, that's, I mean, what I ended up doing was adding suet, just
Yeah,
pure
dude,
beef
suet's
fat.
a fucking game changer. Jesus Christ.
Because I was trying to do a 70/30, so I
Uh,
would, keep the old gluconeogenesis down. Um, but if you don't have that, if you then you're just doing like high protein meats, um, and I mean, if you're eating plants, like I anyway, so yeah, if you wanted to do alternate day eating, um,
you would
it's
have to have like a fuck ton of shit in front of you.
yeah, and I feel like it would be. I don't know. I feel like there'd be kind of a problem for me to do that at least. But now that I'm eating like normal food again, it's so weird having the opposite problem of like, oh, you know, I don't want to eat too many calories. And back, I remember like raw vegan. I'm like, oh, where could I just need to find 400 calories. Like I can't, like I used to make homemade nut and seed milks just to try to get calories, you know? So I would take, you know, a bunch of almonds or something and blend them and strain them with like cheesecloth, something like that. And yeah, it's just wacky. With the whole like the flipping of the caloric issues when you go from like a raw food to a cooked food diet, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I just ate how many calories? Especially if you eat something like, you know, you eat a lot of. Do you still do the cream of rice or?
Hell yeah.
So is that like your go-to?
Dude, like I have tried so hard to find something to replace it just because it's so annoying to like not only make, like initially blend and whatnot, but like cooking it, I can't get that stuff to like not just absolutely like cake onto the bottom of the pan. So, you know, it's a hassle to clean up, but like nothing comes close to it. Like I've tried like grits, I've tried fucking oatmeal, I've tried just like, you know, like rice cakes with like all the things to fucking high heaven, and like nothing comes close to just cream of rice. Like it's ridiculous. Like I can literally periodize my training around days where I eat cream of rice because I know for a fact I'll be able to like give it 110%. Like that's how well it like works in my body.
So you blend raw rice
Yes.
and then you cook it.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I've been meaning to experiment, like, you know, washing it first and then letting it dry and then blending it, just like get rid of any of the shit that might be stuck to the rice. But, you know, I'm just fucking lazy. So, but, you know, more or less it really is just like blending it, and then like obviously the weight's still the same and everything, but you know, just that like added surface area, not only for cooking but for digestion, like it's insane. And then like, you know, it's such a good like substrate to add other things to help with like the whole insulin thing, like cinnamon and like, you know, potassium rich like dried fruits. Like I love it.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
like to wash my rice. So um that would be a problem for me. Like I'm a obsessive rice washer.
Yeah, so is Elba. So she's been bullying me about that. So, you know,
Whenever
eventually
somebody's
I
over
will
my
do it.
house, they're like, because I'll rinse it until the water runs clean, and they're just
Hmm.
like, if they're like, okay, I rinsed the rice, and I'm like, is the water clean? And they're like, well, I rinsed it. It's like I become like a parent. They're like, it's when people have different standards for that kind of stuff. It's always good content. Alyssa actually asks, can you make cream of rice in an instant pot? That might help with the caking on the bottom.
I don't see why not.
Use your instant gang weed to help with the process.
That's a Alyssa has such a wrinkly brain. That's amazing.
And then somebody says, try casamana on cream.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. Kazza.
Let's do some cursory research on that.
Second word Manna.
Oh, it's semolina.
Oh,
Oh, Kasha. Oh, that's Marcelina. Okay, no, she's
is
speaking
that
of
like
Bologna.
Polish for
Hmm.
kasha? Oh, get out of here with all those consonants. um, okay, so not a lot of, you know, I was just listening to a podcast, and you know who I heard? I heard this name that it's blows me away that this guy's still around. It blows me away that, I guess, you know, if you um it's it's a weird thing. Internet culture is new, you know, because we're used to celebrities, and you
Hmm.
kind of see celebrities. Occasionally, they disappear or have some type of like Brendan Fraser type thing where it's like what happened?
Just.
and stories and stuff. But there's like a constant, basically, monitoring system on their lives. But then with these internet people, somebody pops up and they're like internet famous for something, like some kind of diet, and then people have their time usually being obsessed about a diet, and then they move on. And then all those people, it's like, are they still around? And 10, 15 years go by. So I heard the name David Wolf, who is probably the biggest raw vegan guy. At least he had rawfood.com, the URL, back when that was the first forum I ever used about nutrition in circa 2004, maybe.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty lit. And I think I still know some people from there, actually. That's where I discovered about Aajonus, because in the raw vegan world, there are some people that, like eat raw eggs too, or raw cheese, or, unpasteurized dairy or whatever. And yeah, so I was into him, and I like his first diet, and he wrote with this guy who was like a bodybuilder. And then years later, there's a picture of him and he's all fat. It's a really motley crew of guys. And he changed his name. His middle name is Avocado. So it's David Avocado Wolf. But that was a long time ago, because that's when I first lost touch. And then I saw him like on Facebook after Facebook was, everybody was on Facebook or whatever, like 2010 or something. And Facebook kind of had peaked. And then I saw people posting from this guy, and I'm like, that guy? And he's still around, and he's posting stuff about how the war in Ukraine is part of the Great Reset. And I'm just like, your middle name is Avocado, which is related to Nikocado, right? The YouTuber who's Ukrainian. So Illuminati confirmed.
Damn,
actually,
it really does go full circle.
Yes, it goes full, whatever the shape of it goes full like avocado cylinder, teardrop phenotype. But yeah, that freaking guy. Oh man, he had this book called, is it called Raw Beauty? I had like all of his books. I used to read a lot of these stupid books, and I can't believe it. Somebody said that dude's a Sir Thriver. No, that's okay. Yes, but that Sir Thrive is the other David. This guy was eating raw meat too, and he kind of came from that world, and then he exploded with a sort of David. What was his name? He sells deer antler, like velvet antler stuff, supplement extract, and he has its company's called Sir Thrival.
Yeah, I know Patrick Nimpone shows his stuff on the show. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, damn.
Fuck.
Because it's David something. Because I remember the both. Anyway, yeah. So, he's like 85% avocado. Well, you are what you eat. That's what I always say. Eat a person, be a person.
Damn.
So like right now, do you eat a lot of raw food?
All the straight milk we get is raw. Raw butter mostly, unless we're cooking with it, because what's the fucking point? Right now I'm slunking like 100 grams of raw liver on the daily, and tartars occasionally. So it's still definitely like a part of the diet, but the diet doesn't revolve around it anymore.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I was pretty surprised when I was looking last month, I guess, about nutrient loss in milk. Milk is tough. Milk is a Sir Thriver. It's something about, I guess, the fat and I don't know, man, but the vitamin A in milk, from all the foods I looked at, vitamin A survival in milk is the highest of like any, if you cook liver, if you cook eggs, if you cook whatever, meat, vegetables, basically everything. It seems like milk is which I guess makes sense because the water, like keeps the oxygen out. It
Mm.
seems like what you don't want, if you're worried about damage to nutrients, whether it's just total loss or like oxidation, stuff that can be damaged, you want not that much gas exchange and like a kind of, I guess like steaming would be better than frying, something like that. I thought it was kind of an interesting thing because for a long time, I was a raw food enjoyer, and I really had quite a bit of a belief that there was something magical about foods that are raw. Like, I probably felt like maybe, you know, I could like not get AIDS because I eat raw food, you know? Like, it's just so powerful because like the life force or the Curlian
Bro,
magnetic
I
field,
was right about to bring that up.
the energy field.
Mm.
I haven't actually gone back and looked at that for a while. What's the deal with that?
No, it's just like, some like electromagnetic spectrum that's being like radiated from stuff. And apparently just consistently when stuff is raw versus cooked, like it's more potent of an aura from the raw stuff.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, but what if you wash your food with crystals first?
Hmm.
I think that
And then
probably
maybe
makes up
like a
for it.
nice quartz plate, and then you like surround that with like organite and whatnot.
Well, you have to. Isn't it personal which crystal is like your? I don't. I'm not an expert.
I don't know.
I just thought like there's different types of crystals, and maybe like
You,
one works for you. It's like different minerals. You know what I mean?
hmm.
And the the astrology I think is important too to when you use them. Um, so your current diet. Okay, so I'm trying to get an idea here.
Hmm.
So you're combining because it seems like what you're doing is you're combining some leftover Aajonus. Okay, you're bringing in the raw milk. Raw milk is so. What's with these fads? You know,
Bruh, it's literally like to the point of being fetishized. Like it's
that's what I'm
crazy.
saying.
Like it's such like a token commodity now that like it separates the boys from the men. But like, cool, you got milk that's not been cooked. Like people have literally been doing that for thousands of years. Like congratulations. Like good on you for knowing that it's definitely I'll argue for the fact that like it's a better choice, but like please refrain from making your personality revolve around that.
Yeah, like I guess this was bound to happen with social media and
Mm,
Instagram type stuff, but I was pretty surprised. I really shouldn't be. It's pretty dumb to not realize that people. You know what blows me away? People in my life, like friends and family, will
mm.
get into a fad of something that I literally did and told them about like 10 years ago. And they just, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder, like, so they really weren't listening. Like, like there's like a high level of not listening. Something that I would actually, because there's been a few times in my life when I've gone back to somebody and been like, hey, you talked about this thing, like maybe a
Mm.
tech thing. And oh, it's so popular now or whatever. Like say like the first guy you heard talk about 3D printing,
Yeah.
like 10 years ago or something. And um, but imagine like if somebody started a 3D printing company, like your friend, and you were just like, and then time goes by, and then it becomes a big thing, and you're like, hey, have you heard about this thing? Because yeah, oh man, people would be like, hey, have you heard of I had just gotten back from the first talk I gave at the Ancestral Health Symposium in 2013. I had just
Oh.
gotten back, and there was this Sunday get together I used to have with friends. It was called Sunday Fun Day. It was really important. And I had driven all night from Atlanta. So I guess the timeline was I got home. I don't know. I guess I drove through the night Saturday. I don't know. whatever to get from Atlanta to New Jersey.
Mm.
Like whatever day that symposium ended that year, I left, some time after that. Anyway, so I had barely slept, but I was like, I'm going to go to this thing because I don't have anything else in my life other than Sunday Funday. So anyway, so I get back after giving like a talk, like on the stage at this, basically paleo conference. And one of the persons whose house it was, they were like, hey, have you heard of the Whole30? Which, do you know what that is? It's like I think it's a
That's just
paleo thing.
like the mega fucking like normie type of diet thing, right?
Yeah,
Just like
and then she started explaining like, well, it's like you don't eat grains, and she started explaining the paleo diet to me. And I had told them I was going to this place, and I had been on a paleo, like these are long-term friends. And it was like, and I knew they're not the kind of people to do a high-level joke, like to gaslight you, like a real like
like it's got levels to it.
yeah, so I was like, wow, this is, so you really don't care. Nobody cares. That was probably the most bizarre experience. Like I was literally on like no sleep from having given a talk at a paleo conference, and then my friends are like, hey, have you heard of this thing paleo? Hey, you look kind of tired. Have you heard of this thing paleo?
Oh my god.
Why are you so tired? All right, so you wanted to talk about the influencer thing and like your new term, an Aajonus, and the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, like the damn esoteric healthism really is just so alluring. Like,
Well, okay, what does that mean? Can we define that?
it's just like there's more to health than what can be quantified in like legitimate metrics, like this is bordering on like the whole health involves like your Carillion photography and like life forces and that kind of stuff. Like there is such a drastic divide from what a raw animal food can provide to you versus like pasteurized or cooked, and naturally it doesn't just extend to primal, but just like any aspect of health that has that like extra sprinkle of woo woo attached to it, but yeah, please.
So that would be opposed to kind of the more how would you classify somebody like Paul Saladino? Because he definitely presents, he talks about science articles and but but he has kind of a vibe, right?
He definitely does.
Yeah.
And that vibe is drastically changing with the more like men in swimsuits involved in the videos he's in. But that being
other
said,
than himself,
like I don't know. I still think he's on like the side of the spectrum that's more like grounded. I would say like, left being like super woo woo and right being, just like empirical as fuck. Like he's definitely more empirical, but maybe a bit like up too, because up is woo woo too. I gotta like make a. I should have come prepared and had like diagrams and everything I could pull up to further elaborate this. But no, he's definitely like grounded, but I think he's going to start getting into like the woo woo stuff in regards to like, like if you have like these raw testicles, you're going to like enhance your male virility because you're consuming like the masculine energy of another animal. Like it goes beyond just like the zinc and like the precursors to testosterone that are present. Like there is this force present.
Right. My theory or my prediction for him, what I've referred to, I think, is that he's becoming kind of a shock jock. Like he's doing things that he's trying to present this shocking, because has a medical degree, and so he kind of, because if somebody just gets on camera and eats something insane, then it's just a stunt.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like, oh, I'm a doctor and I have sort of this history talking about stuff, and then he gets on the camera and he's like, "Hey guys, radical liver bite time, surfing."
I'm not sure if you included it in that most recent video of yours or if it was just something on your story, but it was like who wants to do shots? And it's like it's goat milk and like, like liver or something, and he has like all of his little like boy toys run up to him and like take the fucking shots out of his hand. And it's just like, bruh, like what is this turning into?
Well, yeah, I saw something today. Somebody sent me a guy. He was sitting like inside at a normal table, and he was like, "Oh, don't for people that don't have time to cook breakfast. Here's something you can do." And he had a glass,
Yeah,
and
he
he's
had
like
the
six.
brain and the eye.
Yeah, yeah. And I was
Yeah.
like, that this is not an obvious solution for those people. I don't. It almost like I guess that was tongue in cheek,
Mm,
but also
hopefully.
wasn't. Uh, I do get a little weirded out with brains.
I only had brain once, and like I was completely surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Like it really was just like a thicker egg yolk type of thing with like a bit of a fishy aftertaste. But I was like, oh shit, like, uh,
Fishy.
yeah, I guess like I don't know, omega 3s or something. But like I ate it in the back of my friend's like camper van with
This is
like
raw.
yeah.
Hmm.
Like he literally what it was right before he moved out to California, so he just fucking like raided Miller's organic farm and just like got us a whole bunch of
You
random
use
shit.
Miller's?
He uses Miller's. I'm
Oh,
a
okay.
Dutch Meadows baby, but
Okay, I think I've used both of those, but Miller's was my weekly, and Miller's, and is there the other one like Friendly? Is there one called Friendly?
I
Friendly
believe
Farm?
you.
Yeah, I was part
Don't.
of a co-op that got drops.
Mm.
Got drops from Miller's.
Yeah, I fuck with Brain. Like it honestly, like it's just the sourcing. Like it's hard to get. Like we did you ever go to a Brick Farm Market when you're in this neck of the woods? It's in
No,
Hopewell, I think.
no.
Okay, because like they're one of those places that like they do all their butchering like by themselves and everything. And I asked if they could hook me up with grain, but of course, because of like, you know, safety and health sanctions, they can't like really do that. But
Hey, can you get blood?
yeah,
All right,
what
because
kind of people? What type?
A positive. No, I was because I was thinking I've always there's something I always wanted to do,
Hmm,
which is a bloodbath.
very cool.
And there I asked some people. I talked to some people and they were like, "Dude, you're a psycho," and I'm just like, "Nah."
It
But
gets really sticky.
that's
Like
the
it
thing. You
get.
have to cut it with water. So people don't
Mm,
understand what you think is blood in that meat package is mostly lymphatic fluid with blood kind of coloring. You know?
yeah, like the myoglobin or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the actual lymph. It's like it's it's like like some white blood cell and fluid, and like it's like plasma without a lot of red blood
Okay.
cells. Basically, the red
Hmm.
blood cells, yeah, make it coagulate a lot. So somebody said adrenochrome challenge. Yeah, I'm gonna take. Yeah, can we get? I'm coming up with a whole party idea here. But yeah, if you want to take a blood bath, what you got to do, it's probably like 50% blood and then 50% hot bath water.
Wouldn't that curdle?
Well, not boiling,
Oh, okay.
you know?
Yeah, because like the closest I've ever done to that was, funny enough, my while back, blah blah blah. But I happened to have some on me, and I was like, "Hey, like, do you want me to pour it on myself?" And they were like, "Sure." So I did, and I just like kind of did the full like the Mel Gibson from The Patriot, that one scene where
Mm.
he's just like covered in it, and I was just vibing like that. And it was nice. My skin felt great, but like, good lord, I felt sticky as fuck.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it would be good for the skin.
Oh,
When I was a
absolutely.
raw vegan, I tried to take a bath in green juice because that was when green juice was really big. And what I did was I bought cases and cases of like celery and leaf lettuce and stuff like that, like watery stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I started juicing it into a pitcher and dumping it in a bathtub. And I'm doing it. I had a Green Star juicer, which is a really good juicer.
Damn.
Dual gear. Oh man, the pulp that came out was so dry. Is like you got all the juice. So I'm doing that. And I do it for a couple hours, and then I look in the bathtub, and there's like an inch of, and I'm just sitting there like, this is. Does you ever hear like how many gallons are in a lake or even in a bathtub? It's like, oh, it's 60 gallons. And you're like, what? No, it's not. Like I think if I poured 10 gallons in that bathtub, it'd be like full. It's like,
Like bathable.
yeah. No. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. If I'm going to do this bloodbath thing, I'm not going to like nickel and dime it. I'm going to get, a volume of blood that is the correct volume. No half measures on that one.
Respect.
So, so the Aajonus thing.
Yes.
What do you think? I have a like scraps of an audio essay sort of about him, but it's about the thesis is going to be something like, if you have a dietary philosophy and it's at all empirical, basically once you start justifying your philosophy with information, that's the seeds of its destruction. So, because people will just eventually debunk it one way or another. So Aajonus, it's almost like he understood this intuitively.
Yeah. No, like exactly. You were saying that, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like this man is literally playing like 5D chess.
Yeah, like he knew, because he says a lot of things about how the body works and all this stuff, but you can never really pin him down on a falsifiable statement, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the key to the longevity. And I think it's also because stuff like vegetarian or veganism, they make a lot of scientific claims,
Yeah.
but the heart and soul of their movement is not, empiricism. It's basically like the feels of, not being like a meanie and eating animals, because they always fall back to that. They're constantly doing like a Moat and Bailey thing where it's like, vegetarians don't have heart attacks. And then you're like, well, if you just, take smokers and a couple other people out of these data sets, meat eaters, like the difference kind of goes away. And they're like, yeah, but meat is murder though. And, and then the paleo, I think, so that's one of the things that the paleo diet did so wrong is they started off and they launched, because the corpse launched like low carb and stuff like that, but it was based on this kind of empirical idea of knowing what people used to eat and that therefore that's better. And they just it was very science based, all kinds of sciences like anthropology. And then
Yeah, exactly.
every time like an anthropological dig would find, like,
Grains.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
someone's
yeah, like a
stomach.
pot.
Just like, let's sweep this under the rug.
Yeah, or like these Africans that go on like a walkabout in one of these still primitive places to collect honey because it's like so important. They're like, yeah, we'll trek for 3 days to get like a whole bunch of honey, and we'll eat a ton of it when we find it and then bring it back to the village or whatever. And they're like, hey, I guess honey's on the menu. And it starts to become kind of like a farce. And Paul Saladino did the same thing, although I don't think that he did it because of the anthropology, although maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, Aajonus he created this thing that is essentially based on a revelation from God, I guess, in the desert with wolves. And I mean, it's almost like a Mohammedan experience. And
It's so like fantastical.
But it doesn't stop there.
Oh, absolutely.
See, he has the Old
Like,
Testament, right? Which is his like
the childhood and being sick.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
like, I guess we start transitioning to new when he starts getting like the raw milk and carrot juice.
No.
And then,
That's still old.
no?
I'm saying the
Okay,
Aajonus New
all right.
Testament is when his son has the car accident. That's the
Okay, all right.
son of God. And
Okay.
he resurrects him, literally,
Mm-hmm. Damn.
with this revealed, diet or whatever
Mm-hmm.
concept. And yeah, it's a complete biblical tale from start to finish. And so anyway, that's the key to its. That's the key. That's why it resonates with people, in my opinion. And I have the book right here. This is my original copy. And you can tell it's my original copy because I've said this like a million times. I'm actually pretty proud of it.
But he's flexing it now. Hell yeah. You jaundiced looking motherfucker.
Yeah, he said I look jaundiced. Yeah, it says it's kind of hard to read the signature. It just says Aajonus. You can see the A and the J, but yeah, it's Kyle, best of health, Aajonus. I think that's the only thing that's in here. It's in very good shape. But yeah, so this thing, this is essentially a Bible.
Mm.
It has gospels in it, and it has like lessons and things you're supposed to do, and they're infinitely interpretable, right? So you can have factionality. And then I'm kind of trying to wonder, like, we have this, right? Of course.
Is that like some like Dead Sea Scrolls type of thing?
I feel like you almost have to go into, yeah, like different, Nicene committee stuff of which gospels make. But see, this is like, right? It's almost like this is one of the really dry chapters, like a Leviticus type thing, or But how many of these recipes have you made, by the way? Do you like crack this open and make recipes from it?
I used to. I wasn't really a fan of like the sauces and everything, just because like the majority of those were made for people that actually had like at least some aversion to raw meat. But like the most I would ever have to do is like some pickles and red onion, and I fucking call that a day and just start hammering it down. But like lubrication formula, obviously sports formula, which I actually don't think is in there.
No, they've just got the pain
nut formula. Yeah, which is literally just a lubrication formula with like what, cheese and bee pollen, right? Yep. So
this
and
is
like
incredible. I haven't looked in here for many years. Wow.
trip down memory lane.
When I saw him speak, he spoke. I saw, so I could actually be a like a bishop, I guess, like a disciple. I could be a bishop. Actually,
Are you an apostle?
Is Peter the one that denies Christ thrice before the bell rings or whatever?
That sounds right.
I'm definitely not Judas, because I have not been paid by anybody to do anything. But I think I might be Peter. Anyway, he was on stage and he was like, oh, I have this thing, the moisturizing. And then he explains, when I talk to women, I call it the moisturizing formula because women like to be moisturized. And when I talk to men, lubricated. And he went like that. Men like to be lubricated. He was funny, man. He was really personable. And he was nice. I talked to him and I asked him because I was finishing up undergrad. I think I had finished up my biology undergrad, and I wasn't about to start graduate school. I took some years off. So I got kind of disillusioned with that stuff. And I took like 2 years off and just worked in labs, and then started applying to graduate school and got in. And then, so it was like 3 years in between. I think it was during that in-between time, or maybe towards the very end of my undergrad. And I was like, oh, I want to do scientific research, nutrition, research, and maybe you'd like to somehow do some type of project. And he's like, oh yeah, get in touch with me when you have a project to do. And I was like, okay. Then he goes and dies in Thailand. It's like, come on, man.
Those damn balconies, dude.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Like it definitely makes sense. I'm seeing connections that I never realized before. But jumping back to the whole thing where we were talking about like, you know, like basing stuff in evidence, the fact that like, you know, there's so many like just like the woo-woo claims that he said were supported by like research he did in a lab because the lab like owner was a friend of his, and then he died and the family wouldn't let him get the research unless he paid some like exorbitant amount of money, so it was just paywalled, and like he didn't have any of the supporting evidence to like, you know, back up the majority of like, you know, his claims. Like I don't know, like it really does like pay into that. And even that whole story, even that story as a whole, like I don't know like how much validity there is there, but like, you know, there's so much like showmanship, you know? And, you know, back when I was like really into all of this and like, you know, I was like literally in my free time, I would be listening to Aajonus lectures at like 4 times speed and like taking notes and just like, you know, constantly learning about them. Like there was even a point in time where I was debating like watching General Hospital to see if I could see him on the show. Because that was one of the shows that he said that he was like paid to be like a fucking you know, like a background actor for or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, like so many claims, like even starting from the very beginning with like, oh, you know, like I was an invalid dragging myself around, I couldn't speak, and then I had the raw carrot juice and milk, and then I could talk, and then I got books, and then I, you know, I read the Buddha book. I forget which book, but you know, like a 70-ish page book. After not being able to read, he reads in like, or no, he was using like a fucking dictionary for like every other word. But like, you know, it goes to that, and then he starts like coding and stuff. Which I mean, honestly, with like, you know, calling himself autistic, coding, that makes sense. And then he goes to like the whole thing where he was like editing like B-roll for like nature documentaries, and then he was just like an actor and like, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff. Like it's so like grandiose, you know.
Well,
and it's just,
it is the life of a prophet.
Yeah, I mean, not wrong.
And he's actually a prophet of our times because he learned to code. You know, like he was having problems, and you know, some libtard must have just been like, learn to code, and he was like, did it. I did it. Yeah, I'm thinking of trying spicy African paste for fish. I wonder if you could use it for something other than fish, or, you know.
Nah, don't risk it, bro. Every one of those recipes has been thoroughly researched. Don't.
The ones
don't
that are really a stretch is like the pasta substitute, or like the chicken soup.
I was about to say the soup
because it's just blended
like
raw
like
chicken.
Any of the soups. It's like, oh yeah, just take some like tomatoes and, you know, throw some chicken breasts in there, and then you get tomato soup.
You blend it into liquid.
Yummy.
Well, okay, in a food processor, so into like chunks. So it's like chicken gazpacho, French chicken. Yeah, this is really, yeah. Yeah, he. The one weird thing though, I think he was a true believer in himself, which it kind of throws me for a loop, because one of the things that bothers me so much about, you know, Paul Saladino or like Liver King or whatever, they definitely believe some of the things that they do, but they're creating a persona, you know, like a social media avatar that is not themselves, definitely. And
yeah, like even Fruit Fano, dude, like he's absolutely gonna be like, you know, everything that I and trying to show you guys will like help you. Meanwhile, he's like applying everything that he's doing and like, constantly failing health.
Right. Yeah, although, you know what, he actually does remind me a little bit of Aajonus, because I think he hid a lot of his failing health, but ultimately he did talk about it, and he does a lot of doubt posting, like, because I'm not a super expert on him. In fact, I didn't even know who he was until before I did a radio debate with him, which wasn't even really a debate. It was just this bizarre, very weird thing. And I had no idea who he was. I went home and looked him up and saw like the first image that comes up on Google. I'm like, excuse me? Yeah. Because when you think of raw meat, or just meat, carnivore, whatever, you don't think of a guy that looks like that. And I was just like, I could tell right away. I was like, this guy has had makeup on his face. And also his face is just a little like uncanny valley. I don't know if he's had plastic surgery or
just a little bit of fillers here and there,
or if it's just like, you know what I mean though?
Oh yeah, no, like not to the full point, or excuse me, not to the full extent where like his face is completely like AI generated, but he definitely looks like he could be like one of those like default faces for like an android.
Yeah, like he spawned into game.
And didn't customize the character. Yeah.
Oh, somebody said he's had jaw. Okay, that makes sense. Jaw surgery.
Okay.
But he just like the way his eyes, he has kind of like this almond thing, and he has really big eyebrows. But like the rest of his face is kind of more effete. Because like you'd think big eyebrows would be like this like kind of big square jawed, Anyway. That was what, so I have this like handful of weird experiences, like my friend like asking me if I've ever heard of the paleo diet after getting back from the Ancestral Health Symposium. And then, yeah, this one, when I got home from the stupid Orlando radio station, I guess the station wasn't stupid. It was a fine radio station, but it smelled funny though. Like people in radio have BO.
Oh, yeah.
And and that's just how it is. Like I bet if you go into one of those like shock jock stations, like the Morning Gator, and you know what I mean? Like those guys that are like on cocaine in the morning and they talk about sports and traffic. I bet those places just smell awful. But yeah, when I got home from that and I looked up, I was like Frank Tufano and saw the pictures that came up, because it's not like you have to look very like it's almost like he does the search engine optimization to have pictures that make him look weird at the top. But that was a very weird. There's actually some questions that I just want to pause for a second. And
neat.
So somebody says, I don't believe in astrology, I'm a Sagittarius. Eat raw brains. Ooh, raw brains is too wild for me. Baking soda bath for CO2.
I've been meaning to try the full, like, get a body bag and pump CO2 into it with your head sticking out. Because, I'm just that kind of guy, I guess.
Yeah, because, Ray says the cure to altitude to CO2 poisoning is more CO2. That's like one of the kind of funny, because yeah, he said that people would have altitude sickness and then they would get put in the bag with the oxygen, but the oxygen was not getting to their head, so they were just like bag breathing with more CO2. And so it's just like, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, you don't feel good, or you feel sick from this thing? I got the thing for you. And it's like more of the thing. There was a question. Rice pudding. Oh, somebody said, so what you guys eat? ? I am lost. I guess we didn't do a good job.
Damn.
I've been eating a lot of bodybuilder food, like rice and chicken, chicken and rice.
Dude, I hate to admit, but like I'm definitely like falling back into that shit. Like right now, like my diet is literally a meme, and it's I'm doing it for no reason than to say that like I cut using this, which I'll explain later. But like chicken and fucking tuna. Like I hate tuna.
Mm.
Like when I first started like lifting seriously, I was not about the protein powder, so I would literally just fucking stand in a soggy ass locker room and like scarf down 2 cans of tuna and wash it down with whole milk. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm fucking getting gains, bro. But like now, like, I still have to fucking scarf it down, but like that protein to calorie ratio, like it's fucking hard to beat. And like honestly, chicken and rice, I can't imagine somebody having issues digesting that.
Yeah, I mean the only problem with it is, I guess from the Petarian perspective would be get
Calcium,
yeah, you
phosphorus.
got yeah, and the amino acid profile.
Yeah, true.
Speaking of that, somebody said I would put Ray Pete high on the esoteric health guru scale. Is there a reason why he is not appearing in this convo?
I just feel like we haven't gone to him.
Yeah, he's definitely different because
there's more than just an X axis to this. There's an X and a Y. Hence why Saladino could be more empirical, but he's also like getting a bit woo-woo. Like Pete is definitely incredibly empirical, but at the same time, like him talking to cats and everything, that's very fucking
Pete
woo-woo.
Ray does something that so Aajonus created a religion around raw food diet, as we just explored together here, which by the way is the hottest Aajonus take that has ever occurred on the internet. That we want to live is a Bible with an Old and New Testament. Anyway, with punishment, rules, and the redemptive Son of Man. Ray did something, which is he changed the entire framework. There's a way, because if you take somebody like Paul Saladino, Sean Baker, and then if you get really, really sciencey, like who's that guy that used to be a power lifter? Reverse dieting guy.
Stan Efferding.
No.
No.
Is he?
Wait.
I'm thinking of he's like a guy.
Oh yeah.
He. I think he also has an Italian name. He does empirical. There used to be a word for it, and I used to argue with these people a lot, and I really hated them because they don't understand philosophy at all, and they don't understand like it's philosophy of science. They just think science. God damn it! I was just watching a
Wait, like powerlifter guy?
He used to be a powerlifter, maybe also a bodybuilder, and now he's like 50 now or in his 40s or something, and he's still in decent shape, and he does like the evidence-based guy.
Wait, vertical diet or
no. Reverse diet. The guy that's like once you're at your goal weight, you can start to slowly increase calories and increase the amount of calories you can consume at weight maintenance slowly. Is it Mike something? Mm-hmm. No, but somebody said Jeff Nippard. No, but he was. I just watched a Jeff Nippard video like 2 days ago, and he was in it. He was like, there were 5 people talking about the science of weight loss, and he was one of them. Jeff Nippard, by the way, he's weird. He looks like he had.
He's short.
He looks. The way that he's Lane Norton. Thank you, Matthew Thomas.
Oh. All right.
So anyway, he would be the most. I would call it dry. Empiricist. He's very dry. He has no woo-woo at all. Like
yes. Okay. No, I totally agree with that.
And what Ray has done is he has created. So there's a certain perspective or perception of science, which is kind of this dry. It's like that's why it at least. Back during like the skeptic days or the internet atheist stuff, like that guy, Dawkins. It may, science in the 20th century really just fell into this opposition with religion and perhaps spirituality in general. And there's this idea to it that if any kind of like value or like higher anything or like instinct or anything like that, any kind of, yeah, like a woo woo, but just a feeling, it has to, that's not scientific. And it almost has to crush people's hopes. Which then, of course, you see the reaction to that, which is people are actually super religious about like this COVID stuff and other things, because you essentially just can't remove that anyway. But there was a time when there were, I think, men of science that were like more intelligent than the men of science of today. And they kind of created this like dry. But anyway, what Ray did is he took science, because he actually did like a PhD, and he collected data and he reads papers, but he just interprets them through a cultural, I guess, sociological, philosophical lens that is not the same one that Lane Norton uses. So he's like looking at information, and there's this unspoken rule of how you're supposed to look at the information and how you're supposed to like feel about it, or like it has to be dry and it has to be like not mystical. There can't be mystical language. And he's just like, no, I'm going to mysticize science. So instead of starting from mysticism, because like somebody like Aajonus would start from mysticism, and then he's like, hey, look, I did all this science that proves my diet's correct, but like I couldn't pay for it. So like, darn. But like cilantro definitely detoxifies iron, like from heavy metals, from the liver for sure. Like absolutely. But what Ray did is he's just like reading the same stuff, but he's reading the mysticism into it. So he's like, oh, like thyroid is mystical. Like the thing that it does is essentially a religious function. And like it allows you to talk to cats. It allows you to ants to organize. It allows like all of that stuff. So somebody said Lane Norton also had a PhD. Yes. Yeah. So Lane Norton is like the opposite. So Lane Norton would be somebody who did science and he just has no room for like mysticism in his life. And I don't know if like his personal life or whatever, I don't know the guy, but just the way he talks about stuff, he'll just like, okay, what works in weight loss, and he'll just try to find like every, weight loss paper he can find, and weight gain recidivism, and there's definitely a place for that, like that's definitely the best, like people be regaining weight. So, and that's important to talk about. And that, whereas Ray will just start talking about, like the culture and like vegetable oil and milk and radiation. And before you know it, but he'll reference a study, and he just has this way of talking about it, and it's like you can't really, it's not really anything that's debatable. It's just this different interpretation. And so anyway, I'm answering that person's question why Ray didn't come up, because Ray is his own genre. There truly has been, I don't think there could be, like, that's its own thing. You can't compare like the Ray Peat diet to another diet, because it's really what it is it's a way of looking at reality that's just different. It's not like, oh, well, low carb is good because insulin's bad. Like, that would be like the low carb people are kind of trying to compete with vegetarians in the same realm when they talk about science. Even though, like I said, the vegetarian people, they don't really rely on science as like the driving impetus for their diet, which is a strength of their diet. So how is Ray looking through his mystical lens different than cognitive bias? Uh, I think it's a level before cognitive bias. I mean, cognitive bias would be I have a predetermined conclusion and I'm going to try to find that conclusion in what I'm looking at. But he actually goes prior to that. He just has a different.
He has like a different lens altogether.
Right. Like cognitive bias would be, do you know about pericycles in astronomy? Like before heliocentricity and, the stars going around the Earth, when people were like the Earth is the center of the universe.
Okay.
Because if you took astronomical calculations with that model in mind, the stars would kind of move in a way you'd expect, and then they'd like double back on themselves and kind of do like this. And it was called pericycles. And they came up with this like really complicated model and math and stuff to try to explain, why this is happening. So I'm sure people would debate within the pericycle theory of like, what explains the pericycles, or why is this star like its cycles are smaller, all kinds of questions right within that. But then somebody else was like, okay, well, what if like I'm just going to not assume the Earth is the center of the galaxy or the solar system or the universe or whatever. So then all that data just is different. So I'm sorry, epicycles. I don't know why I said peri. I mean, they're both Greek for next to, kind of. Anyway, so Ray is like he just looks at data and he's just interested in a different information in it than other people. It's like if you're looking at a photograph and somebody's looking at the positive space or whatever, and somebody else is looking at like the negative space, and it's like he's like getting his data from like a different part of the same thing. So it's not really, it's like a cognitive bias is a much more basic, like it's like imagine like Gary Taubes or something reading some paper about metabolism, and he's just like, where can I find carbs are bad? Like, oh, I'm scouring this thing for fructose is bad, and as soon as he finds a sentence that's like fructose or sucrose or whatever is bad, he's like, see, Gary wins again. And then somebody else that doesn't think carbs are bad would scour the paper for like some sentence or some piece of data that supports carbs aren't bad. So that's cognitive bias. Ray is like precognitive. I don't know. He's his own thing, and we all love him, right? Thyroid allows you to talk to cats. Aw. Yeah, I should try that. There's a couple of cats that live next door and they're not tame. So maybe if I slonk a heart racing dose of thyroid, I'll be able to tame them. So what do you think about Ray? Would you
He's a pretty
compare
cool guy.
him with Aajonus or not?
So both of them, like based off of that analogy that you were kind of making, where like, someone's looking at the positive space, someone else is looking at the negative space on the paper. I feel like both Ray and Aajonus were kind of looking just at the paper, not what was on it. And like that's to show how much of like a different perspective they had on it than kind of the regular thinking, especially for instance with Aajonus, like the medical system's trying to kill you. Ray has like a very similar opinion on that, like the cut, burn, and poison mentality. And Aajonus said the only thing that like the medical system is good for is like surgeons. You should treat them like a mechanic and just like fixing like whatever thing that they actually need to like get in and fix. But there are similarities, but again, like in this XY axis of esoteric healthism, I think Ray would be top left for the empirical, and Aajonus would be top right for the woo-woo, you know?
Hmm.
So almost like reflections of each other in a way, despite being like just different in regards to their actual like source material.
I would put Ray in the tanky quadrant and Aajonus in the libertine quadrant. I would put Paul Saladino in the Lulbertarian quadrant and Layne Norton in the
Authoritarian.
authorate. Ray do be liking his Soviet Union.
True.
That was the thing that kind of like, that was my first eyebrow raising Ray Peteism. It's like, okay, fine, cells, fine, there's no sodium potassium pump. Okay, all right, I'm with you. And on and on and on. Serotonin isn't the happy hormone. Okay. And then, and then he's like, oh, Russian science is the best, and during the Cold War. And, I read that book, Cold War in Biology. He talks about sometimes. It's, I don't really remember it. It wasn't too memorable.
Well, I guess that tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, it was definitely about how there was a lack of communication between East and West during that time. I'm not even sure it came down on the side of Eastern science being superior. I should get it again, but the thing that kept me from buying a copy is that I lost my actually, this undergrad that was doing research on my project, I lent it to. He lost it. I had to pay for it. I had to pay like $140 to Rutgers Library for this thing.
Jesus fucking
That's how much
Christ.
it costs. Because it's like out of, you know what I mean? It's like you have to buy it.
Oh, right. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. So I already spent $140 to not have the book. So I was like, I'm really going to feel like an asshole if I spend if I spend $280 to have the book. Although I guess I should have it, because I do feel like I kind of have to collect every book on philosophy of science that there is. Hey, is it dark up there yet?
It's getting there.
It's still nice and sunny.
No, I'm just...
Somebody said Ray seems to collapse body-spirit distinction without ever directly discussing it. Yes. I have said this a million times, because Ray is actually not a communist. He is, and he's not, he's definitely not a capitalist. He's not, he kind of, you could call him a libertarian, but not really. What Ray is an anti-fascist. That's the only ideology that doesn't contradict any of his positions, which actually, a real essay I'm working on. I'm working on a Ray essay. And this is, calling him an anti-fascist fits in completely with the thesis of that essay, which I'm not going to spoil here because there's 21 viewers, so we can't,
Can't risk it. This is sensitive information.
But yeah, it's funny that he likes the Soviet Union, and he likes the science from the Soviet Union, and yet the Soviet Union, the state, the party line, and the scientist, unless you want to, go to like Gulag or something, was materialist. Like radical materialism in the old Soviet Union. But then he kind of hates Christianity. So you have to define everything Ray likes in like a negative term, like he doesn't like materialism, but he doesn't like organized religion, kind of a thing, And you sort of, it's almost like It's like negative space. Like if you want to draw the picture of what Ray likes, you have to like pop all the things that he doesn't like and then like see what's left. Which maybe one day somebody will accomplish that. It'll be like Big Chungus. With carrot salad.
Of course.
Somebody said, yo, thoughts on Firebend? Feyerabend?
Paul Feyerabend, Austrian philosopher of science. Thanks, Elba.
Austrian? What year?
That's what my cursory Google Foo was telling me. Born 1924, died 1994.
Okay, don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, similar.
Said
similar to Ivan Illich. No way to sum up. Oh, I like Illich. He's a little bit of a libertarian for me, although it's hard to like the things that I've read are his things about the medical system, which I forget the name of, but it's like his big essay about the medical system, and then his writings about the education system, which I also can't remember the name of. It's one of those things I could probably remember if I wasn't doing a stream. But yeah, he's got some scathing critiques. The Illich has very scathing critiques. Why do you think keto works for epilepsy? Why do you think keto works for epilepsy?
Damn, Kyle. I mean, wasn't that like the whole reason behind the formulation of that diet?
Yeah.
Because there's some like end product from like carbohydrate metabolism that just like made people susceptible to have like those little seizures.
You know, I don't even remember.
Yeah, I just have, again, very cursory understanding of this just because this was something that I happened to discuss in one of my, I think it was like neuropsych. We were talking about this, and that was like when I was like really starting to get into like the whole primal thing and like, oh yeah, keto lit. And then, you know, naturally later I find out that like Aajonus wasn't even pro keto, but you know, like I think it's just it has to do with some sort of like maybe it's like being in keto increases like the GABAergic state, and that's like, you know, obviously a bit sedative, so that calms the brain down. And obviously, you know, GABA is also a bit like cleaning. It's like a wash for the brain, so that could like remedy any sort of like misfiring neurons present. So
yeah, it's somebody said because sugar hijacks the crack receptors. Yeah, it's probably because opioids and, you know, it's the brain opioid crisis. Oh, somebody said medical nemesis. Yes, that's the Illich work, of which I was referring.
My damn cerebellum looking like Kensington Ave. That's what I'm saying.
When I was doing my graduate school work, it was really funny because I was learning about neuroendocrinology in real time. Like I hadn't really. Every time I did a science thing, I was kind of doing stuff that I hadn't taken the undergraduate coursework, all of it that was necessarily relevant. So like the way I learned about different neuronal, different parts of the brain, you know, bundles and nuclei, I guess they're called, was like the person I was working with would cut one up and like give me this little thing to extract protein or RNA from. And you actually like memorize the names a lot faster that way when you're like working with your hands. But the two nuclei that we would use, well, we would mostly use the arcuate nucleus, and that is mostly made up of POMC and NPY neurons. And POMC is pro-opio melanocortin cortex, something like that. And NPY is just neuropeptide Y. Oh, and CART, which is, so the pro-opio melanocortin, that's one that's kind of opioids effect. So they're named after how they were characterized. So like if you could give a drug back in the day that would affect these neurons, they'd be like, oh, it's the neuron that's affected by this drug. So this pro-opiomelanocortin. So melanocortin opioids. And then NPY is neuropeptide Y. That's named after what it produces, so it makes more sense. And then CART was cocaine and amphetamine regulated transcript. So the proteins that it expresses, its transcriptome, is regulated by cocaine and amphetamines. So it's kind of like, that's the upper. So the POMC is like the opioid, it's like the downer. So yeah. So they're probably getting hijacked. I actually have a bit of a novel take on brain stuff and what was it? Epilepsy, which is that I think ammonia metabolism is kind of related. And I think some people have trouble with ammonia and kicking ammonia out of the brain. And that if they can get less sugar metabolism. I don't know. I had this like worked out before, but now I forget it. But I think a lot of these conditions are perhaps because of ammonia metabolism dysfunctions.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think Aajonus said that like they are basically like the brain more or less resetting, which that's a interesting take, especially now having worked with people that like semi-frequently have seizures. Like, oh yeah, calm down, bud. Your brain's resetting. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm like at least 70% right with that GABA claim. But yeah.
That's I had an idea for a science T-shirt. Do you remember that kids show Yo Gabba Gabba?
Yes.
I was thinking of taking that logo and replacing the words with the formula for like GABA. So like, yo, GABA GABA.
Sick.
You like that one? Do you like it a lot? Somebody asked for your views on vegetables.
Yeah, like I said, yucky. And honestly, the only ones that like I will go out of my way to eat are just like, what I use to season stuff. I don't ever really like, like sometimes the only thing that like I'll occasionally like is actually like well-cooked dandelion greens with like a fuck ton of like coconut aminos. Yeah, it's tasty.
Oh, you have access to the chat. I just now realized that, even though I've been seeing you type in there. Because I've literally never streamed with anybody that looks at the chat while I am. So I'm like reading the chat to you, and I'm like, hey, John the Savage says. I like vegetables. When I was a vegetarian, that was my first diet. So I got into college, and I immediately fell in with this group of like kind of like commie leftist college activists, and half of them were vegetarians because that's just part of that demographic. And so I was peer pressured, like peer influence. I mean, they weren't that pushy about it or anything. I just wanted to be cool like them. And so I went vegetarian probably my sophomore year in college, and I started cooking really big stir fries. And I liked it.
Yeah, same.
And like
stir fries are the
bell
shit,
peppers, dude. And like string beans, all fresh though. Like I hate like canned string beans, and a lot of that stuff really doesn't, like there's some things that are okay in a can, and there's some things that are okay frozen. But if a stir fry is with fresh vegetables, and I used to make Heka Pufa cooking oil. I would take just vegetable, just whatever crappy, I'm like living at my parents' house, and doing, has this like thing of vegetable oil. And I had a Chinese cookbook. I think it was called China Moon, which I believe is a restaurant that probably still exists in San Francisco. This would have been a cookbook from like the 1990s. And she had a recipe for chili oil. And so you would get just like a big, with those plastic bags with dried chilies in them. Oh. And you would just heat a whole thing in a saucepan of oil with the chilies for a while and then pour them, in like a glass container and use it to cook. And it's so good. Actually, that's what makes that Chinese food taste good. The stuff that we had at that place in Highland Park is the chili oil, and they like to use those Szechuan peppers, the kind that make your mouth numb. And they have a few killer ingredients, killer apps. And yeah, the chili oil is definitely one of them. And you can see it leaking off. You can see the color. You can see the you can see the PUFAs, and like they're,
glistening in the starlight.
Yeah, and because they've got some of the chili coloring, so it almost looks like it looks kind of like automobile oil, because it's like has like a golden, and then it has some. It looks like used automobile oil. It's like a little bit of engine breakdown. It's so good though. That's one of the things that sucks about any time I've had a diet, is because I like things that I've always thought were bad. Like I like vegetable oil products, like mayonnaise. Like sandwiches are better with mayonnaise. I don't know what to tell you.
I hate mayonnaise.
I wish I could be that person. I have friends like that, and I'm like, that's so fortunate for you. Have you tried making homemade? There's a mayonnaise recipe in this thing. I'm sure it sucks. Homemade mayo sucks all the time.
There's one that we get that's made out of MCT oil that the only way I can get down is like mixing it half and half with sriracha. So thank you, my dear.
Oh, so you're making the spicy mayo at like sushi places.
Yeah, basically.
Let's see, mayonnaise, Ethiopian kitfo, liver pate, lamb shanks, African lamb, beef stroganoff.
You know there's an Ethiopian place in New Brunswick?
Yes, I've been there.
Is it good?
Yeah. It's kind of fancy. It's like really nice inside. It's decorated really nice. All the waiters and waitresses have big swollen bellies because they haven't eaten for weeks. No, I'm just kidding. There's kids in there with flies on their face. No. Mayonnaise. 4 tablespoons of unsalted raw butter. 1 raw... Oh, I forgot about this part. He always puts fertile egg.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure, that your hens are being...
Pumped
inseminated.
And again, like that's a perfect example of like esoteric healthism. Like I'm sure like any benefits of like eating a fertilized egg versus a regular one are just so incredibly marginal that they're not going to do anything. But because it has that like that literal life essence. Yeah. It's more virile.
Yeah, when I was so this is just a basic mayo recipe. You got the egg. He uses butter and olive oil, so it's kind of a mix. Because that's actually, I realized that I think what the problem is when you try to make olive oil with saturated fat, it doesn't emulsify the same way as unsaturated. I think actually that's why commercial mayo, although they probably use some chemical stabilizers to help unnaturally, but because you got the egg, right? So that's where you get the lecithin from the egg. Mm-hmm. And that's amphipathic with the acid from the lemon juice, which emulsifies the fatty acids. So, and I always thought this was chemically strange. But so the fatty acids are surrounded by fewer acid molecules. And the interaction is stabilized by the amphipathic lecithin, which is phosphatidylcholine. And I think unsaturated fats are more effective at that. So that's probably why he has the stone-pressed olive oil. Stone-pressed.
Specifically stone-pressed, never heated above 98 degrees.
He also uses the verb blenderize.
I love that, dude. That's amazing.
Hollandaise sauce. Hollandaise meat sauce. Yeah, so I've tried to make mayonnaise. Every time I had a diet, I would try to make mayonnaise with that, to that diet or whatever. And so with the raw vegan, you can use everything except the big problem is you can't use egg. So you have to get some other source of phosphatidylcholine. I don't even know what I did for that. I think I didn't understand that at all, and I was just blending together lemon juice and fat, and it was just, you know what I mean? It's just, it's exactly what you think. Nothing happens. It just makes like a liquidy, a watery oil. It's like a vinegar, it just makes a salad dressing essentially. And then yeah, I tried to make paleo. So I used lard. Like I saved pig fat a few times. One time I saved pig fat, and rendering fat, boiling fat is like really hot. It has more heat in it than boiling water. And if you pour it in a mason jar, just like right into it.
Oh my God, Kyle.
I had it in the sink though. But
I'm glad, because I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Yeah,
otherwise.
it actually explodes. Like whatever part of the glass it touches leaves the rest of the glass behind and enters a new plane of existence. Yeah, so that was a fail on that one. And yeah, basically I just think mayonnaise, it's one of those things that it's got to be junk. It's got to be like chemical fake ingredients. If you make mayonnaise at home, you can whip something up that's good for maybe a meal, like serving it like just in time. It's like Amazon just in time delivery. But if you put it in the refrigerator, unless you're like the mayonnaise king, unless you're from Mayonnaise, France, it's going to fall out of emulsification. And I think once it falls out of emulsification, it's even harder to get back into with those ingredients, because the Kirlian field changes, and you only have, it's got like a full boost the first time. So the second time you would have to probably put a little bit of like your life force into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. At least a few drops of adrenochrome to recover it.
Yeah. Somebody wants to know what you're eating.
Ice cream with a chocolate cake.
Seriously? All right.
I got to keep the brain fueled. That's literally my diet, by the way, in case anybody is marginally interested in, what I was referring to earlier. But
I think they are.
Literally. Cool. So basically for the past more or less a week, like there's been 2 days where I've been off track, unfortunately, because this is a very strict diet. I think 90% of people won't be able to do this. But more or less, wake up, 50 grams of raw beef liver, wait a little bit, have myself a nice little coffee with all the fixins, wait a little bit, have some orange juice, adrenal cocktail style. After that, this is when things start to get hard. I have to have half a pint of Haagen-Dazs, followed by a coffee, another orange juice, finish off that pint, another 50 grams of liver.
Okay.
It's tough. It's not for everyone, but feeling great. Weight's going down. I got to say I'm losing weight eating a entire pint of ice cream a day, and just flex on the laters. Well, a pint's
not that much.
Yeah, like I was looking at it, I was like, this is only 850 calories, like give or take. Like coffee is 800, I think the chocolate's 900, but it ain't shit. And it satiates you. I mean, like for fuck's sake, it's like half fat, so.
Yeah, well, I actually was on an ice cream diet for a while when I first discovered Ray Peat. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like my metabolism will go up.
Yeah, exactly.
There was, I forget what brand it was, like Turkey Hill or something. They came out with a natural line of products, where it's just like cream and they might have had like one gum in there, maybe not, I forget. Kind of like Breyers has one where it's just like guar or taro gum. It's like one gum and it's not carrageenan. Anyway, and it was on sale in whatever store I used to go to back like where you live. And I was looking at it and I was like, because Haagen-Dazs is pretty expensive, and it was like cheaper than a pint of Haagen-Dazs, but it was half a gallon. So for months, my diet was like that ice cream with just Great Lakes collagen powder poured all over it.
You forgot the coconut
Like
oil, dude.
many servings of collagen powder. It's just in a big bowl with this. I did gain weight a little bit.
Not metabolic enough.
Thoughts on David Sinclair? His research hasn't panned out, but he doesn't seem to be upfront about it. That name sounds familiar.
That's the resveratrol guy, isn't it?
I don't know.
Oh.
I've probably forgotten. Like there's some factoids, like stuff about David Wolfe or whatever. There's probably a lot of stuff that I've read, or like when you're in graduate school in nutrition, people are always giving seminars, or like people are talking about stuff. I probably forget about all this stuff. Like I sat and listened to some professor that studies resveratrol and what's the one in green tea?
Theocrene, ECG.
Yeah, whatever it is. And I actually witnessed a little spat between professors because there was like a seminar, and this one professor was talking about their research, and the other one was like, "Don't you think it's weird how that never works, like clinically or whatever?" It was like he was funny though. He's like this autistic. He was the professor that got his PhD under Hans Krebs of the Krebs cycle. Yeah. And he had a picture that he would always show, and he would make the same joke every year. He would show this picture of Hans Krebs that he took on a bicycle, and he would say, "I'm the only person that's ever photographed the Krebs cycle."
I gotta give it to that guy. Wow, that's great.
Yeah. I tried emailing him actually last year, because when I was making a video, he had some slides in a class that I took with him about energy production rates from the different substrate, like carbs versus fats and ketones and everything. He had some really good slides, and he will not give them to me. He didn't even, I'm not even sure he uses that email anymore. He might be retired. I don't know. He also had a really good slides that he made from like the best experiment on amino acid utilization. It was I'm not going to remember the design perfectly, but it was using radio labeled amino acids, and the experimental design was something like you would feed one amino acid at a constant rate and then feed other ones. And it was measuring, depending on the different amino acids that you're being fed, and then ones you're fed in excess, how much each amino acid would go into. It was basically seeing how much it would go into protein synthesis before it starts going to making energy, like gluconeogenesis, and it would see that because it would become exhaled CO2, because it was the carbon that eventually becomes CO2 in the amino acid. The carbon chain was the one that was labeled, or maybe it was one of the oxygens. I forget what they labeled. They labeled something that became exhaled CO2. So they would just collect these peoples that are being fed these amino acids. They're exhalant, and look for the radio labeled carbon, and then they could see, okay, so like you can feed this amino acid for this long, and then it'll start to, or I guess stop being used for protein synthesis. And they came up with basically, I think that was the study that came up with like egg protein is the most optimal,
Oh, wow.
Then I think egg protein and dairy protein are actually a little bit more bioavailable in the sense of going into protein synthesis at a higher rate of their amino acid profile. And then, but meat is like right there. They're all very comparable. It's just egg white protein is a little bit higher. Any tips for hair loss? Have you heard of this guy, Danny Roddy? You heard of this guy? This guy has hair.
when he
Guess
shouldn't.
what his hair looks like. It's like a fox. Yeah, you know, I don't know about the hair loss thing, because I gotta say, there's a lot of unhealthy people that have their hair, and there's a lot of people that do stuff that don't. I think hair loss is a really good case study in something that is both genetic and environmental. That is to say, there are some people, it's like you could have 4 quadrants, you know. Some people have some type of genetic profile, and maybe we could say it's epigenetic too, whatever. Just not their lifestyle, where their inborn physiology, they're just going to keep basically a full head of hair for most of their life, no matter what, you know. They could get really fat. They could like eat a crappy diet their whole life. And then there's some people that start losing their hair like in their 20s. Like a Jason Statham kind of guy that like he probably started shaving his head when he was like 24. And you look at the guy, he's not huge, but his physique looks very dihydrotestosterone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like a bulldog.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think anybody could have saved his hair. I'll put this up that way. Like I don't think there's any amount of like aspirin and red light and you know what I mean, like CO2 or whatever. And then that's the spectrum. So like those are the two sides of the spectrum. And so, because I feel like a lot of these conversations about, you know, in the repeat world, people be like, well, they'll think like if you say something has a genetic component, that means like there's nothing you can do about it. No. Like, because, you know, some people don't have to do anything to keep their hair.
Yeah, I think just as important as the genetic component is like that sense of like inherited nutritional wealth. And I think for the majority of the people that like, you know, experience that, where it's like, you know, there's nothing they can do. It's just because they were, you know, dealt a hand where they just didn't have like the necessary like minerals and whatnot to actually support hair as a system. Because like in the end, you know, it's such like it's by no means necessary, you know, like that. Like I remember when I was fucking fasting, I was just like, yeah, dude, like hair and nails, like, yeah, they grow slow now because my body has like more important things to take care of. And like, you know, like, yeah, that's the case. But at the same time, it's also a good metric to judge how well you are doing health wise, because your body has the availability to like expend energy and nutrition to just, you know, fucking casually growing shit for no real reason.
Yeah, and I don't think it's insignificant that men have a certain type of hair loss. There's also a characteristic male hairline. If you look at even men that have their hair, they'll have a hairline. Like you can almost see somebody's. You could probably come up with like a physiognomic chart just on a man's hairline. Like for example, a castrated man would have like a super low hairline. He would have his pre-pubertal hairline, you know, most likely or whatever. And then the kind of normal hormonal, you know, male hormone ratio kind of has like a slightly recessed hairline. And then depending on probably a million factors, you know, of like lifestyle and genetics and stuff, is whether you have like the full-on pattern baldness or not.
Yeah.
But if you look at like the busts of ancient Romans, a lot of them have their hair like into their 50s and stuff, but they have a very similar hairline. And I think they're basically like high T Chads. And then if you look at, oh God, I can't remember all their names, but there was an emperor, was it Constantine's son? There was an emperor that went back to paganism after Christianity took over the empire, and he was short and he was kind of like not impressive looking, and I think he had like a lot of hair.
Mhm.
Anyway. So having a lot of hair as a man, like having a pre-pubertal hairline, that's also perhaps not ideal, I would say. But no, my tips for hair loss are just like I think all you can really do is not be on a low carb diet. That's the biggest one. Just don't be on a low carb diet.
Yeah.
Just don't do that. But I say that for everything, so I feel like that's not. Get enough protein, get enough minerals. Like that's all you can do. I mean, don't take steroids. And if you have to take steroids, you know what I mean? Like don't just see that as a risk. Like if you don't have to like get on stage or whatever, or like competitively power lift, then just maybe like don't take steroids. Thoughts on William Lee, MD, his diet to lower angiogenesis as cancer. People just keep name dropping all these people. I don't know.
I feel much better about myself after hearing you say that because, yeah, like I'm still very proud. I was right about David Sinclair, and in short, he's definitely a better businessman than he is like a nutritionist or like or a health researcher, as we call ourselves. But yeah, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah,
man.
I think this is probably somebody who's like website or even Instagram. Like there's a lot of doctors who have people are always sending me stuff. People like to do this thing, and I'm probably just making it worse every time I mention it, but it's like a game. Danny used to do it. He was the only one that did it. He would send me something that somebody like Paul Saladino said, because he'd know that I would like burn him in the comments, like you're dumb. And now it's like like people just are always sending me stuff. Like they either send it to me in Instagram or they tag me in the comments. Nobody ever responds, by the way, except that one time a vegan guy did, but he was like, vegans are just like really wacky. Somebody asked if you worry about vitamin A overload. Did you see that?
Hell no.
All right. Hair Cafe YouTuber makes fun of Ray Pete Forum and Danny Roddy. Oh, I think I saw that. I think I saw that there was that video. Do you think natural selection is scientific? Yes. Healthier with egg, though. Yeah. Hair Cafe is anti-DHT. Yeah, I think the DHT thing is pretty... I mean, men that are castrated have less hair loss. Men that take men that take steroids, depending on how it kind of goes, like what they take and stuff like that, have more hair loss. The post-finasteride syndrome is made up.
It's a bold claim, Cotton.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably just some men that don't get it. That's the thing with a lot of this stuff. Like, I started this paper like years ago. I have a bunch of review papers that like one day I want to send into a journal, but it's really hard to sit down and do those because it's like I'm not doing them for work, but they're like work. So it's like it's like this weird in between thing. But I started trying to write. It's going to require math, and I hate that.
Oh.
But the problem with modern science, okay, is you can't study things that have differential effects across a population with big data sets. You have to identify. It's like if you were to study a treatment for type 1 diabetes, right? But just take the general population as your subject cohort, okay? You're not going to get anything because you're going to have most people that don't have type 1 diabetes. The drug's not going to have any effect, okay? So if 15% of people have really bad effects from finasteride and like 25% have no negative effects, and blah, 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 blah. And if you look at that whole cohort, okay, like say every man that's ever taken it, you might not be able to get a statistically significant effect. And you'll go, look, it's made up. But that's retarded, because what if that effect only affects certain types of people? Like only some people get certain diseases. You know, like you might as well say Tay-Sachs disease doesn't exist, because if you took the whole human population, it would be statistically insignificant. It's like Tay-Sachs, the existence of Tay-Sachs is within the margin of error. So, you know, that's the extreme Lane Nortonism, is like, you know, these things don't exist. But of course, scientists, when they're studying certain things like type 1 diabetes, they understand that their subjects have to be type 1 diabetics. But you see, that presupposes the existence of the condition to study it.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to study whether a condition exists or not, and you're taking the general population, that can't work, or it's highly likely to not work, because just like if you were trying to find the existence of type 1 diabetes by looking at all 7 billion humans and being like, well, Jesus, only, I mean, look at this. It's like a rounding error. How many people have this? Like, this doesn't exist. So I was trying to mathematize that concept and to show how, you know, I'll have to pick certain diseases that have certain rates and stuff and show how, and other effects, like, I don't know, like maybe post-finasteride syndrome is a good one. Something that has a lot of data to it, something you can really work with, and show that you can use legitimate statistical methods and big data to just explain away things that we know are real, because they'd be statistically insignificant unless you presuppose that they exist and include that in your study design. So it's kind of like, if you don't already presuppose or assume something exists, it can be like invisible. I don't know if that's what the argument is about the post-finasteride syndrome. I think he says it's real, but not as prevalent. Yeah. Well, okay. Still though, I would never take a drug like that. I mean, like, the chance that like your like libido just goes away forever or something like that, you know, like you just become like impotent or totally lackadaisical and lose all kind of like your hormonal tone. It totally gets, that's, you know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that keeps me away from steroids. 'Cause like the small chance that I'll just bork my whole system and, you know, like be like depressed and crying or something for months after I come off a cycle or like whatever. And yeah, you can do it a smart way, and most people probably don't have that big of effects. But like to me, it's just like, man, I already got enough problems. Yeah. I don't need post-finasteride syndrome.
I see someone asking about myostatin, follistatin, YK11. YK11, if I'm not mistaken, that's a SARM/SARM. Not too familiar on that, but myostatin and follistatin, that's actually something I've been diving into a lot recently. To anyone that actually follows me on Instagram, I expect to post on it soon. But yeah, the rabbit hole is fucking deep, and it's really interesting to see like how many different pathways you can actually like influence myostatin, and how in reality that's a bigger contributor to your overall like reward from exercise than your like overall testosterone level.
So myostatin, doesn't Eddie Hall claim to have a mutation in myostatin?
Maybe he does, but he's lying, because the people and animals that do have a myostatin deficiency are fucking freaky looking. Like that's like those.
Well, isn't he
like
freaky looking?
He's fat.
Yeah, but he was the world's strongest
he's
man.
Strong, but like, yeah, okay.
He says his daughter's big
too.
He made the claim in some interview that he has a mutation in myostatin. He may be lying.
I can almost
well, just because you have, you know, myostatin's important, but it's not everything. You could have a mutation in myostatin and have the the kind of negative feedback on muscle growth disinhibited from that system, and still have other factors that make you not able to grow as big as I've seen them. Yeah,
Look at
yeah, I know. I'm in awe at the size of this lad.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I imagine, and like, funny enough, it's one of those things where like, there's so many pictures of like kids with it, but there's rarely anything like adult wise. So I'm curious if it's just something like, yeah, you have a myostatin deficiency, so your heart's basically going to get fucking yoked and your chest is going to explode one day. But yeah, like definitely past the point, I think there would be like diminishing returns, and like if anything, like maybe your follistatin will decrease in line to like almost balance out the ratios again, even though you have such like a decreased level of myostatin to begin with. But I think that's just Eddie being Eddie, and like being someone who was really getting into strongman as a sport, and just like knowing the type of character he has, like being able to like say that is something that I can definitely think he would do.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of has like a bull type look to him. But hey, is he ever gonna box half
Thor?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 19th actually.
Of
this week.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm
like in
sure.
3 days.
99%
this weekend?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. This has been like in the works for like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Saturday, March 19th.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was Thor and Devin Lorette last time, because Eddie Hall like had some injury, right?
I didn't follow all the reasons why it didn't happen. I just remember years ago they said it was going to happen, and then it just has been not happening in a big way.
But I think it's hysterical that like he chose to fight someone. I mean, granted, he didn't like choose to fight someone. Like he was picked for whatever reason, but he managed to go up against someone that literally couldn't like fully extend his arm, because he's done so much arm wrestling that he's just like constant T-Rex mode like this.
I didn't see that. I actually don't like watching. I guess they had a lot of time to train. I don't know what their technique looks like, but when I see really big, muscly guys throwing arm punches that aren't technical and then getting like gassed in 2 minutes, I get like frustrated. Like it's like watching. You ever like listen to a podcast and people are arguing about something and they're so wrong that you want to like make the point or whatever, like they're missing something. It's like that. It's just like watching people that don't know how to fight. And again, I mean, because they're so big, it kind of makes up for it or whatever. But I've just watched too much MMA and boxing and all that kind of stuff to be too entertained by that. I do like Eddie Hall though. Mm-hmm. I mean, I kind of, I'm not sure I like Thor.
Is it the like Ball's palsy or something?
No. That's cool. That's really cool, and I like everything about him. But did you watch the Strongman that Eddie won?
No.
So Hafnor, he does a couple cheat reps on the.
Oh yeah, with the like the Viking press or whatever, he started using like his legs.
And he gets mm-hmm. They say, okay, you're done, like you did it twice. There's and then he argues with and he says some stuff to the judge to try to get him to review mm-hmm. the tape that he talks about like his dead daughter. I don't even want to bring it up, man. He pleads with this guy, with this judge, to try to get more points in a way that I felt was extremely not honorable or whatever. I hope that was just like something that he did because he was like in a particular emotional state. I hope that's not like the kind of guy he is, but huge turnoff. Somebody said he should have accepted defeat gracefully. That's the best way to put it. It was like perhaps the least graceful. Like, remember when that who's that tennis player, the female? Yeah, when she
Steroids.
lost to that Japanese girl. Do you remember, like, she, like, chimped out at the ref or something? This is like a year or two
I
ago.
believe it.
And that was not very graceful, but this was even worse because he was, like, pleading with this judge and using this, like, an emotional kind of it was very not cool. Too many dudes mounting each other in MMA. I see we have a jiu-jitsu disrespecter in the comments. Somebody asked, are you in Japan? I am not in Japan. I just have a Japanese room divider that somebody gave to me years ago that I use so that you can't see my kitchen. That's it. Somebody before asked about, have you ever tried turkesterone?
No.
Okay, me neither.
Doesn't that work on some like beta estrogen
Beta
receptor nonsense?
Beta
And estrogen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not familiar with it, and honestly, for the price and like how much you'd get out of it, I don't see the point. Like that's
well, isn't the
splitting
point
hairs.
that okay? So I actually haven't looked at the chemistry or whatever of it at all. But from what I understand, and I've seen people that have like respectable opinions or whatever say that it doesn't. So because, as you said, it doesn't really interact with the androgen receptors. It's kind of like you don't get any of the issues with anabolics. So.
Oh yeah, like I'm not even actually looking at it from that angle. Like absolutely, like in regards to like any sort of, you know,
It's like it's free real
like
estate.
negative. Literally, like it's very benign, obviously, in this like incredibly like preliminary trial that it's basically been going on thanks to Gorilla Mind and everything. But you know, everything's fine so far, and we'll have to see what happens further down the line. But really, it, you know, you don't have to take an AI during it. You don't have to run PCT afterwards, and like the only thing is like, you know, how much are you really going to get out of it? And especially for the price, because at that point, like you're better off literally just like, I don't know, actually fully committing to a SARM that has a bit like more like technicality to it, or just taking like some oral ancillary that, you know, gets you a better effect. And not only that, like honestly, like if you just go on the list of like all the stuff that like WADA bans, like
just go on
pick
that
and
list.
choose some. Yeah, exactly. Just like pick and choose some cool stuff that isn't like, you know, directly like suppressive, and I'm sure you could like find a or formulate a stack for yourself that's going to work better than it.
Yeah, that's a good MVP list, that WADA list. Before I forget, well, okay, somebody said true babies with the myostatin lacking gene are ripped at birth. Eddie might have a mutation. Yeah, he probably has some type of small mutation where it's less active.
Yeah,
and probably a lot of those guys do. You know, they probably just, you know, not everybody does genetic testing.
Yeah, like not even then. Like the genetic component's such a small part, but like any sort of like anabolics are going to be directly influencing the myostatin pathways. So, you know, you could be getting your genetics in a bottle. So.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming he had like a test done because he said his daughter had it too. So he probably did 23andMe and then like looked for the, you know, the SNP or whatever that you can do.
Yeah.
Somebody said, why do you suppose that Alzheimer's is far more likely in women than in men? Do you? I actually have a Pete take on this one.
Is it like, I don't know, estrogen building up and CO2 going down, and CO2 like slow or low CO2 slowly causing like asphyxiation in the brain or something?
Yes, estrogen. So Alzheimer's is a disease of misfolding proteins, right? In the brain. And it's very predictable. So if you take the perspective on estrogen that peat does, and it's, basically pretty scientific, that it causes the water in the cell to be less organized. It basically, so estrogen is a proliferative factor. It causes cells to divide more quickly. It causes cells to have a different relationship with water, and cells that are about to divide have more bulk water in them than cells that are in like an S phase, just a chilling phase. And then that same water interacts with all the proteins, including chaperone and folding proteins, and while proteins are being translated and folded. So the idea, so particularly a disease, a misfolding protein disease, you would expect to be, basically caused, or, the preconditions for that would be like super related to estrogen. So I think that's actually a case where like the peat perspective is probably correct, in terms of what's causing that. I heard SARM selectively goes down with increasing doses.
You see, so it's just like basically a question about SARM dosages, and I think something that really needs to be taken into consideration is the fact that like the majority of the research was done with rats, and like the dosages given to them weren't really effectively translated for people. So you see stuff recommended in like the 10 to 15 milligram range, and like that's going to produce such a minor effect, and frankly, like you would more likely than not actually need more to get like a good response from it. But at that point, if you're trying to do something so low that doesn't actually like shut down your endogenous production, like I think you're better suited just like optimizing your own production instead of trying to like, you can get it going pretty well, but it's still going to take some degree of a hit. And yes, you'll have like a different pathway doing other work alongside it. But I think the benefits of just like, test maxing in this regard would actually outweigh including some SARM.
Yeah, it's such a tricky situation because the receptors, of the action are the same as the receptors of the inhibition. So you're just like pushing this, like inflatable ball under the water or whatever, or no, that's the wrong analogy. Pushing the balloon, and it makes the other side, getting my air buoyancy, partial pressure, Boyle references mixed up. And yeah, you kind of have to overwhelm the system, because if you take an amount that isn't enough to overwhelm the system, then the system will just adjust, so like you kind of,
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of like an all or nothing. I mean, there's the terkesterone thing, which who knows. What do you think about Anavar?
Anavar's pretty fucking cool.
Because that
Like,
doesn't,
it has like a mild upregulation with your own like androgen synthesis, but it doesn't like suppress anything as far as I've found in the literature. And whereas most oral ancillaries are damaging to the liver, this one is pretty liver safe. And the only thing that you kind of run the risk of is a bit of kidney damage, but like kidneys are almost like the liver in that they can like regenerate if things aren't like super.
and it doesn't
fucked up.
aromatize, right?
No.
Yeah. So,
But again, like it's one of those things where like honestly, there's no real point to like an Anavar only cycle apart from like cosmetic purposes, because any sort of like strength gains, like you'll be like very marginally stronger. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be like, adding like 15 pounds to like a total max or anything, but like it's just going to be some like background worker. But like honestly, depending on like the situation that you're in, if it's like preparation for like a photo shoot or something, then like a little bit of like Anavar with no test space would come in nicely. But the gains it has to offer are very small. But at the same time, again, it's something that doesn't negatively affect you so much as a lot of other things, and at the same time does have a bit of a more noticeable and desirable effect to other things in that category.
Yeah, and it isn't it prescribed for people that have.
Burns.
Yeah, I think it's prescribed for a few things. I think yeah, it's considered by the like medical establishment to be kind of the safe. Like if anybody just has an issue with growth or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
What they've been doing for like kids that have like a systemic like growth hormone deficiency? There's this one form of growth hormone called oh my God, how am I blanking on the name? I literally just brought it up. Not Celebrex, not cerebrolysis, Increlex. This is what they give to kids that like their bodies are producing no growth hormone, and like this stuff is like it's literally like $60,000 for like 10 units. And it's like the most potent like growth hormone. And like there's one coach in the bodybuilding scene right now, Matt Jensen, that apparently has like a plug for it because some of his athletes, they're getting like such strong signs of like acromegalia. Like they're what is it? Hunter, I think it's Hunter. No, Ian Valier. Like he's developing this like brow ridge that's literally like making him look like a fucking Neanderthal.
nice.
But like he's I'm so curious as to like how he's going to like come up for like his next competition, because like that along with like the additional like 10 to 12 units of growth that these guys are running, like that fucking is what separates like the men from like the gods in that sport.
Yeah, I just don't like that look. Um,
Oh,
I
absolutely
am a
not. Like,
classic bodybuilding enjoyer. I only really
mm,
look at the classic. Uh, like I went to the Olympia and yeah, I don't know. Um, somebody asked, how do you train? You've been doing a
um,
whole body, right?
I was doing that for some time, but due to the nature of my work being like night shifts, I just noticed I was not like effectively recovering from that. So I'm back to more or less how I was training when I was getting like the best results, and just with like this additional sprinkling of some more knowledge. But basically, it's chest and back, shoulders, arms, legs, and then I have an additional day, which I have just been focusing on bench, but recently I've just been doing like like fun stuff like Bulgarian bag and like maces and all that jazz. But I train. I'm a big like to failure guy, whether that's mechanical or through the use of like drop sets and time under tension. But like at max like 5 sets per exercise, last one to decent failure, and maybe every body part gets like a total of like 10 to 20 sets per week. But I'm only training like honestly like 3 days a week. So
Um, somebody would love some GH side effects, not the insulin resistance. Uh, the insulin resistance from growth hormone. Yeah, I'm not sure why bodybuilders and athletes and stuff definitely give themselves some insulin resistance with that. Um, but yeah, super potent growth hormone. I don't. Yeah, you'd think maybe that effect is just saturable. You know, like it just only like you can't just scale it up forever. Like, because
mm,
theoretically, if it was linear, you could give an amount of growth hormone that would make and this would also be true of cortisol or any kind of drug. You could give an amount that would just make glucose unable to enter the cell under the influence of insulin at all, and the person would just immediately
mm,
die, like just immediately go into a coma. So I'm not sure that's possible. I'm not sure there's an amount of because growth hormone it gives you kind of chronic insulin resistance. Um,
Yeah.
as opposed to like the really acute, stuff. So,
And again, that's like a recreational dose would be like 2 to 4 IUs a day, and I don't think that's something that you would really have to worry about unless you're running it for like months at a time.
somebody asked how strong. Wait, do you do
I'm
do you
fucking
do
what?
do you do powerlifting?
No,
Okay,
I just want to look pretty.
yeah, same.
So yeah, I'm weak as shit.
I don't even bench.
Oh, yeah. Right now, the only thing I'm chasing is like a 3 plate bench, so I'm at like 290, but I'm getting there. But I'm cutting at the same time, so it's a far off dream as things stand. I think like the most impressive thing I've ever done is like I did a chin up with like 150 pounds added. Yeah, it's cool, I guess.
My best bench, I think, back when I first added raw animal foods. So I was super
Mm,
skinny, and then I started eating like raw cheese and stuff, and I put on weight right away from the animal
mm,
protein and the fat and all that. And I think when I was about 155 pounds, I may have also been eating meat at this time too, but I was still really skinny.
mm.
I could bench 225 for maybe 3 or 4 reps. I never maxed out, so but I guess if
Mm.
you put that into one of those calculators, maybe 235. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Um, so that was probably my best weight, body weight to bench ratio that I ever had was when I weighed about 155, and I was just coming out of, my super skinny, like raw thing, and kind of moving towards like a sort of Aajonus / raw paleo thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I deadlifted. I think I deadlifted like 405 at my biggest in high school, like senior year. Um, I don't think I've ever squatted more than like 235 to like, yeah, I've never squatted a lot. I've never wanted to PR enough to to be like, okay, I'm going to get under the bar for a squat and
Mm.
potentially not be able to get up. Like that to me is like mind boggling.
Oh, okay.
I would try to PR all the time with deadlift because you're just like,
You pick it
yeah, or
up.
you don't.
What's the worst? You're gonna drop it?
Right.
Like, come
I use really strict form too. So like,
on. Mm.
because a lot of people when they're PRing deadlift, their back is like so rounded, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
probably fine once in a while, but I wouldn't want to be doing that on a regular basis. David Wolf, what does he bench? I don't know, 200 avocados. Hey, I have some lightning round questions.
Oh, hell yeah.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
All right, based. Uh, Collagen or gelatin?
Damn. I've been. I like collagen for the ease of it, but I like gelatin because when I use the gelatin, that means I'm not using the collagen, which makes the collagen last longer.
Yeah, because
So,
collagen's expensive.
yeah, so I think I might actually go with the gelatin.
It's funny. Like gelatin is processed collagen, so you know it's weird that I think collagen has to be sourced better, or it is
Mm.
sourced better, and that's why it's more. I'm trying to think like why is it more expensive? Um, Greeks or Romans?
Damn. I think Greeks.
Mm. Yeah, yes,
Good people.
yes. Kairete. I think that's it for lightning round. Um, I just invented lightning round. Uh, I wish I had like one of those cheesy soundboards, and I could be like,
Oh, that'd be
like it's
tight.
time for lightning
That
round.
needs to be an investment.
Uh, yeah. So, do you have any like final thoughts on anything?
Um, looking back on it all and like all the guru-y
Mm-hmm.
nonsense, like although my opinions of these people have certainly changed, I think in the long run, I still deeply value the effect that they had on my life and the course that they managed to put me on, because I don't really have anyone else in this regard that, just like a silly book that like managed to have such an influence on my life. So, in the end, Aajonus is a pretty fucking cool guy. How much of his shit I actually believe is up to debate, but at the end of the day, I think he definitely helped a lot of people. He definitely helped me, and I will, in his honor, avoid every balcony I can.
Yeah. Um, I mean, he really.
Bro, I love that look. Like, let me, like, how do you? I can't even like straddle my chair right. I might like wait. It's like this,
Yeah,
right?
and he also has. I think this picture must have been taken in the '80s because he has like his hair is styled, you know, with
Probably
what's that
tallow.
called? It's like a. I'm not good with the names of things like that, but I mean he was a real human being,
And a real hero.
and there are some testimonials on the back of his book. Alex, age 10, says Aajonus is really good at helping me feel better with food. From the mouth of babes.
Literally.
Yeah, I think we've really produced a new theory on the Aajonus We Want to Live book. I will be expecting to see this on all the Aajonus meme pages as the canonical interpretation of his work. There's basically no other attempt, scholarly or otherwise, to understand Aajonus Vonderplanitz and his contribution as a kind of neo-Essene Gnostic Christianity. That's totally not ironic. All of those words mean something in that phrase, and that they are correctly applied. He does have hair like a fox. Aajonus Vonderplanitz has hair like a fox. It's actually kind of fox-colored. Coif. Yes, he has a coif.
Did Did you ever know what happened to his son,
No.
to Jeff? He became a crack addict.
Uh,
Does this put a wrench in the works?
no.
Okay. To further elaborate, he became a crack addict, and then whenever he was doing really bad, he would do the primal diet, be clean for a bit, and then relapse because his brain would start detoxing the like amphetamines or whatever, and then like give him really strong cravings.
Yeah, I think that everything that happened with Aajonus leaving this world and what happens with his son fits very well into a kind of sacrificial, um, transcendent or, leaving the. I'm sure that his son spends time with prostitutes and beggars, so to speak.
Wow. Damn, Kyle, you're on fire tonight.
Uh, but yeah, so I guess that's it. Um,
Yeah.
we've been talking for a while.
Yes, sir.
So thank you everybody for tuning in. Had a pretty active. Did you moderate?
Yeah, I was. I didn't let any shit slip through. I wasn't gonna take it.
All right. Well, I guess everybody probably knows your. Do you want to plug your Instagram?
Sure. It's there's a fuck ton of underscores, which I hate. And
I'll
I
put the
think
link
I
in the
should
description.
You're a saint, Kyle. But it's underscore John underscore the underscore savage underscore. So yeah, peep me out. I think my YouTube channel is the same thing without the underscores. I just realized I have like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start posting again. Haven't posted in like a week. I have stuff to post though, so it's just a matter of me actually remembering to upload. But yeah, yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you for being here. And oh hey, can I congratulate you? Is this something I can publicly do?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, congratulations on getting married.
Hey,
Am I the first
thanks.
one to do this on the internet? On YouTube?
No. On
On a
YouTube,
live stream?
yes.
So,
Yep.
um, well, I'm yes, I'm pleased at the event, and I wish you, domestic harmony.
And international violence.
Yeah, yeah. Peace at home, war abroad, as always. Okay, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I don't have anything to say. I don't have any outro. Consumatum